ag land preservation is at the top, or makes our top list too. And Mr. Secretary, you know that Carroll County has been on the forefront of that, and we had House Bill 462 that came across the table this year, and so we're asking that we continue to restore some of that dedicated funding for that, and that would help offset what we are putting towards that, which is a tremendous amount of money that we put into that, and it would save us in our general fund if we could see some assistance from the state on that.
The governor demonstrated his commitment to this. In fact, when I referenced that wild card before the BRFA, you know, the BRFA 2 years ago said we should take money out of ag preservation and put it into the general fund, and the governor was accelerating not doing that. And it's kind of odd that we're having a double negative here. But he was trying to recommit, and we did recommit more money to the tune of, I think, 20 million this year and 40 million next year. Yeah, 20 and 40. So that state revenues collected from the transfer tax would actually be delivered for ag preservation and not going toward balancing the budget, which is also why he was so focused on opposing mandate increases. This is the kind of consequence that happens when the mandates exceed the revenues that we bring in. So the governor clearly demonstrated his commitment to trying to help with preservation of the programs. Again, you know, the best ag land preservation program that there possibly can be is to ensure that the farmers on the ground can actually earn a profit off their ground.
Absolutely.
And so to the extent that we can remove other type of limitations that take away from that, but then here in this context of trying to say, look, can we also, you know, control what happens downstream and allow some capital to come back to them, which is, you know, where you're going with this. So we still will remain focused on that first priority, which is to allow the ag community to make a decent and fair profit off their labors on the ground. And so he clearly committed, you know, along the lines.
Most of these programs are going for expansion of the present farms, next generation coming in, and we're going to be approaching 70,000 acres by the end of this year as preserved in Carroll County.
And that's the other big challenge you have, is when you have the generation of farmers that are looking to retire, move on, or whatever. We've talked about student debt and what some college kids are dealing with. Well, also the prospect of a young farming family coming in and saying, well, wait a minute, you know, I've got to now come up with a loan for $1 million or $1.5 million, plus I then have to do the capital equipment so that they can do a hay operation or a grain operation or whatever operation if there's livestock involved too. That's just the economics, the reality of the economics of the industry. And so we're all keenly aware of that.
Mr. Secretary, you said it very well. The best preservation is something that ensures farmers can continue to work. I think every person in this room agrees with you 100%. And there's something happening which is a great concern to the rural counties right now. As my understanding from the Clean Chesapeake Coalition, that Secretary Grumbles is setting up a committee to evaluate nutrient trading credits. And there's going to be 3 or 4 non-elected environmental groups, to use your words, that worship at the Green Cross, and no representation whatsoever yet from rural counties. And we think that that's wrong at every level. And anything you could do to encourage Secretary Grumbles to rethink that and make sure that the electeds are represented, who represent these million people that live in our rural counties, would be appreciated.
I'm not aware of it, but I'll certainly look into it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question about this. Last year, I believe, we wrote a letter to Secretary Belton about the Rural Legacy Program. I wrote it upon your request, and I thought there was an issue about how the formula was being distributed, not just the amount of money in the pot. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Because that was the concern I thought you had, is something about actually the distribution of it.
Yes, we did have some concern with the formulation of it too.
So is that something that the Secretary's office should be made aware of? Because I remember you thought we didn't get what we maybe should have gotten, not just that the money was...
Well, yeah, certainly we have seen a decreasing amount coming to Carroll County as a proportion of the total. So that, you know, the percentage actually has been decreasing over the years coming to Carroll County. And I think one of the items that we wanted to bring up was the fact that those counties that we feel are stepping up and that are putting more money locally into the program should have some type of priority or should be given some type of priority in some of the funding that's coming from the state. In other words, if the boards of commissioners are willing to put or make an investment into the agricultural programs, certainly we would hope that the state would recognize that and say, you know, those are jurisdictions who are doing good, as I heard you talking earlier, should be rewarded for that good that they're doing. And I don't believe that that's necessarily always the case.
Aren't you also the #1 ag preservation county in the state? So you've had the most success.
And that's partly due to the boards of...
But it's also partly due because you started it a generation ago, and you have other jurisdictions that are finally catching on. They hadn't been doing what you've been doing, so you're to be congratulated for that. And I'm not trying to mitigate what your statement is, the fact that, you know, look, reward us because we're still pursuing this, because you're doing a great job of it. And I just want to acknowledge that. I remember when I was in the Senate, you know, Carroll County was at the
But
forefront.
we don't want to be penalized for that either.
I get it.
And one of the things we talked about, one of the reasons we wanted to give you this list, because we keep talking about education funding, and that's our priority. However, the more of these things that we can get, I say our fair share, but get something that we believe is appropriate, it frees up money from the county budget to be able to put more to education. So, you know, they're dedicated to rural legacy and to farmland preservation. If we would get more money through the formula for that, then they could reduce their part of it and put it toward what our other needs are. That's why we're trying to make sure all these other things will help us get to our main goal, which is being able to adequately fund education.
Okay.
But just, I remember you talking about that, and I'm not sure, we'll pay attention a little bit this year, but we just don't want to, we want to reward good behavior and not necessarily, and I'm not saying it's bad behavior, but we have been on the forefront, and the commissioners, even during tough times, have always stuck to this because they
It's
know
not a matter of
how
good or bad behavior, it's a matter of it was a priority here.
Yes,
It was not
yes,
so much a priority
yes.
elsewhere.
But we've maintained it as a priority all along. We'd like to keep it as a priority for funding.
So that's a good, thank you, Tom. That's our focus on our 4 major areas, if you will.